The date was July 19th, 1971. The city was Tokyo. Inside the Kuramai Kokugikan Arena, 11,000 people had paid to watch a man lose. Not any man, a small man, a film actor from Hong Kong who had made the mistake of speaking too loudly in an interview 3 weeks earlier. His name was Bruce Lee. The other man had no interview. He did not need one. His name was already written on every fight poster in Tokyo that summer, in letters so large the poster paper could barely hold them. Ivan Volkov. Weight, 460 pounds. Height, 6 feet 9 inches. Country of origin, Soviet Union. Nickname, given to him by a Bulgarian newspaper 8 years earlier, the Mountain That Walks. For 6 years, Ivan had carried a briefcase to every fight. Inside the briefcase were 50,000 American dollars in cash, bound in paper straps. The bet was simple. Any man in the building who could put Ivan on his back for a full 3 seconds would walk out with the money. 312 men had tried. 312 men had failed. Some had lasted 40 seconds. One had lasted 90. Most had lasted less than 20. The briefcase had never been opened by another hand. Bruce Lee walked into that arena at 7:14 in the evening. He was wearing black training pants and no shirt. His weight that night was 141 pounds. The difference between the two men, when the scale finally settled, was 319 pounds. It was the largest weight difference ever recorded in a legal sanctioned match on Japanese soil. The crowd did not cheer when Bruce entered. The crowd laughed. Not all of them, but enough of them. The sound traveled from the cheap seats down to the ringside, like water finding a slope. Bruce heard it. His face did not move. His walk did not slow. He climbed through the ropes with the small, careful motion of a man stepping into a room he had already measured. Ivan was already in the ring. He was standing in the corner opposite Bruce, arms folded across a chest that looked like it had been carved out of a single piece of stone. His head was shaved clean. His beard was thick and dark. His eyes were pale gray, the color of a winter sky over Moscow. He did not look at Bruce. He looked past him, at the crowd, the way a butcher looks past a chicken. In the front row, sitting on a folding wooden chair, was a man wearing a gray suit and dark round glasses. His hair was silver. His hands were folded in his lap. His name was Hiroshi Tanaka, 61 years old, former officer of the Imperial Japanese Army, and in his coat pocket, resting against his ribs, was a small leather notebook with a red string tied around it. He had not opened that notebook in 26 years. He would open it before the night was over. The referee climbed into the ring. He was a Japanese man in his 50s, thin, sharp-eyed, wearing a black and white striped shirt that was already dark with sweat under the arms. He walked to the center of the ring and raised both hands. The laughter in the crowd stopped. The announcer began to read the rules in Japanese, then in English, then in Russian. 3 minutes per round, 5 rounds maximum. To win, one man must place the other flat on his back and hold him there for 3 full seconds. No strikes to the eyes, no strikes to the throat, no biting. Everything else is legal. Bruce heard the last sentence, and something very small changed in his face. Not fear, not anger, something else, recognition. He had understood in that one line exactly what kind of fight he had walked into. Ivan finally looked at him, and he smiled. And in that smile there was already the shape of what he planned to do. To understand what happened in that ring, You must first understand what happened 3 weeks earlier in a hotel room in Kowloon. Bruce Lee was sitting across from a Japanese journalist named Kenji Sato. The tape recorder between them was small and gray. Sato had asked one final question before packing his bag. A polite question, a throwaway question, the kind of question a journalist asks when he has already written his story in his head. Mr. Lee, there are men in this world who cannot be defeated by technique alone. Men whose size makes them a different category of creature. What would you do if you faced such a man? Bruce had smiled. He had picked up his tea. He had taken one small sip. Then he had set the cup down, and he had answered in a voice that was neither loud nor proud, only certain. Size is a story a man tells himself. If he stops believing the story, he becomes the same size as everyone else. Bring me any man on earth. I will find the place where his story ends. Sato had written those words down. He had not printed them in his newspaper. He had sold them, for a price he never disclosed, to a Russian promoter in Vladivostok, who had been looking for exactly that kind of sentence, for exactly that kind of fight. Within 72 hours, the sentence had crossed 3 borders and landed on the desk of Ivan Volkov's manager in a smoke-filled office in Moscow. Within a week, Ivan had a new poster, and on that poster, next to Ivan's photograph, Bruce Lee's words were printed in Russian, English, and Japanese. Underneath the words was a challenge, $50,000, one night, Tokyo. Bruce did not want the fight. He said no 3 times. He said no to the promoter. He said no to his own manager. He said no to his wife Linda over a long telephone call at 2 in the morning. Then, on the 4th day, a package arrived at his apartment in Hong Kong. Inside the package was a photograph. In the photograph was a young Filipino martial artist named Danny Reyes. Danny had been Bruce's student for 2 years. Danny had fought Ivan 6 months earlier in Manila. Danny was in the photograph lying on a hospital bed. His jaw was wired shut. His left eye was covered by a white bandage. There was a note taped to the photograph. The note had 3 words on it, written in Russian, but translated into English at the bottom. Come and try. Bruce booked the flight that same afternoon. Now, back inside the arena, Ivan raised his hands. The referee stepped back. The bell rang once, a single hard sound that traveled across the arena and returned as silence. Ivan did not walk toward Bruce. He strolled. Each step was slow. Each step was placed. The wooden boards under the canvas of the ring flexed under his weight. Bruce could feel the flexing through the soles of his feet. He noted it. He filed it away. He waited. At 3 meters, Ivan stopped. He spoke. His voice was low, thick, accented with something old and Eastern. Little man, your sentence traveled far to bring you here. Bruce did not answer. I read your words. I read them twice. I liked them. So I am going to give you one gift before I break your ribs. I am going to let you touch me first. Anywhere you like. One strike. Free. So that later, when you are lying on this canvas, you will not tell yourself that you never had a chance. The crowd heard it. A murmur passed through the seats. Some men laughed. Some men leaned forward. In the front row, Hiroshi Tanaka's right hand moved slowly to his coat pocket. His fingers found the leather notebook. They did not remove it. They only rested on it, the way a man rests his hand on a weapon he hopes he will not need. Bruce looked up at Ivan. And then he did something that no fighter in 6 years had done in front of Ivan Volkov. He laughed. Once, short, real. Bruce's laugh landed on Ivan the way a small stone lands on thick ice. It did not break anything, but it made a sound that Ivan had not heard in 6 years, and Ivan's face registered it before his mind decided what to do with it. His jaw tightened for half a second. His pale gray eyes narrowed by the width of a thread. Then the mask returned, but Bruce had already seen underneath it. "You are generous, Ivan Volkov, but a gift given from the wrong hand is not a gift. It is a debt. I do not take debts from men I have not measured yet." The translator at ringside stumbled over the sentence. He gave the Russian version half a second late. Ivan heard it. Ivan did not answer with words. He answered with his right hand. He raised it slowly, palm open, and he tapped the center of his own chest twice. Then he pointed at Bruce. Then he pointed at the canvas under his feet. The meaning did not need translation. "Hit me, then lie down." Bruce did not move. His weight was even on both feet. His hands were loose at his sides. His breathing was shallow and steady, the breathing of a man who had already counted his exits. He was not looking at Ivan's chest. He was looking at Ivan's left boot. The laces on the left boot were tied one wrap tighter than the right. Bruce had noticed it during the walk to the center. It meant Ivan favored his left side. It meant an old injury lived somewhere between the left hip and the left knee, and Ivan had spent 6 years hiding it under 200 pounds of muscle and a black leather boot. The referee stepped between them. He raised his hand. He looked at Bruce. He asked in English, "Do you accept the free strike?" Bruce shook his head once. "No." The referee turned to Ivan. He translated. Ivan's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "Then we begin properly." The referee stepped back. He raised his arm. He dropped it. Ivan came forward. Not a stroll this time, a charge. 460 pounds of accelerating mass, arms wide, head slightly lowered, boots hammering the canvas hard enough that the ring ropes trembled on their turnbuckles. He was not trying to grapple. He was trying to bury. In wrestling terminology, this was a spear. In practical terminology, it was a moving wall. Bruce had less than half a second to decide. He did not step back. He did not step aside. He stepped forward. One short, sharp step directly into the path of the charge, and then, at the last possible fraction of a moment, he dropped his hips, rotated his shoulders, and let his body fall diagonally under Ivan's right arm. Ivan's outstretched hands closed on the empty air where Bruce's neck had been. Ivan's own momentum carried him 3 more steps. His left boot planted hard on the canvas to stop him, and in that instant, that one instant when Ivan's full weight came down on his left leg, Bruce's right foot was already traveling. It did not travel high. It did not travel far. It traveled 6 inches, and it landed on the outside of Ivan's left knee, on a point 1 inch above the joint, at an angle that no wrestler would ever have expected, because no wrestler had ever fought a man who studied nerves and tendons the way other men studied maps. Ivan's left leg buckled. Not fully. Not enough to drop him, but enough that his hip dipped 4 inches lower than his right. Enough that his weight redistributed against his will. Enough that for the first time in 6 years, Ivan Volkov's balance belonged to someone else. The crowd made no sound, because the crowd had not yet understood what they had seen. But in the front row, Hiroshi Tanaka's fingers finally closed around the red string of his notebook, and slowly, very slowly, he pulled it out of his coat pocket. Ivan's roar filled the arena. It was not a shout of pain. It was a shout of insult. In 6 years of professional fighting, no man had ever touched that knee. Not with a hand, not with a foot, not with a chair. And in Bulgaria, in 1968, someone had tried a chair. Ivan rotated his hip once. He tested the leg. It held. The kick had not damaged the joint. It had only reminded the joint that it was there. And that, for Ivan, was worse than damage. Damage he understood. Damage he had lived with. Recognition from a stranger was something new. He turned toward Bruce. His pale gray eyes had changed color. They were darker now. Not with anger, with attention. The kind of attention a wolf gives when it realizes the deer has claws. "You saw something." Bruce did not answer. "You saw something in my walk, in my boots, in my stance." Bruce did not answer. "You will die tonight for what you saw." The referee stepped in. He held up one hand. He looked at Ivan. He said in Russian, "No threats in the ring. Fight or leave." Ivan's eyes did not move from Bruce, but he nodded once, slowly, and the referee stepped back. Ivan lowered himself. His stance changed. Wider base, hands lower, head down. This was no longer the stance of a man who intended to spear his opponent. This was the stance of a man who intended to grab, hold, and crush. He began to circle. Bruce circled with him. But Bruce circled in the opposite direction and always toward Ivan's left side. He was forcing Ivan to plant weight on the leg Ivan did not want to plant on. Ivan understood the game within 3 rotations. He stopped. He reversed direction. Bruce reversed with him. Ivan stopped again. He smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who had just realized his enemy was smarter than he had assumed, and that, for Ivan, was not a discouragement. It was a permission. Ivan attacked. He did not charge. He glided. 460 pounds of body weight moved forward on his right leg, and his left leg dragged behind like a following shadow. His hands came out low, palms up, fingers spread. He was going to catch Bruce's lead leg. He was going to lift it. He was going to bring Bruce to the canvas the way a man brings a chicken to the ground, by removing the foundation and letting gravity do the rest. Bruce did the one thing Ivan had not prepared for. He jumped into the attack, not away from it, into it. His body launched off both feet at once. He rose 18 inches into the air. Ivan's grasping hands passed under Bruce's shoes. Bruce's right knee came up and forward. Ivan's lowered head was directly in the path of that knee, and Ivan realized it half a second too late. Ivan tried to raise his head. He raised it 4 inches. The knee traveled 20. They met at the point where Ivan's forehead began to meet his eyebrows, a bone plate 2 centimeters thick, the hardest bone in the human skull. The sound reached the ceiling of the arena. Ivan did not fall. His neck absorbed the impact by dropping his chin against his own chest, and his hips locked, and his boots dug into the canvas. But his head snapped back 4 inches, then forward 2, and a small red line appeared above his left eyebrow. Not deep, not bleeding heavily, but there. A line where no other man had ever placed a line. Bruce landed on the balls of his feet, 1 meter away. His breathing was still steady. His hands were still loose. He waited. The crowd finally understood, and the crowd rose from its seats, all 11,000 people, and the sound they made was not a cheer. It was a question. The referee did not call time. He did not need to. Both fighters had stepped back to their corners without being told. Ivan wiped the small red line above his eyebrow with the back of his wrist. He looked at the blood. He looked at his own wrist. Then he did something that made the front row lean forward. He raised his wrist to his mouth and he licked the blood off it, slowly, deliberately, his eyes on Bruce the entire time. The message was not for Bruce. The message was for himself. Ivan was reminding his own body that it could bleed, that it was not stone, that the fight in front of him required a version of Ivan Volkov that had not walked into a ring in 11 years. Behind Bruce, in his corner, no one stood. He had refused a cornerman. He had refused water. He had refused a towel. He stood alone against the ropes, and his chest rose and fell at the same rhythm it had been rising and falling since the bell. But inside that steady rhythm, Bruce was doing arithmetic. He had used two techniques. Ivan had seen them both. Ivan would not fall for the same angle twice. The knee to the head had been a gift, and gifts in fights of this level were never given twice. The bell rang for round 2. Ivan did not circle this time. He walked straight forward, hands high, head tucked behind his shoulder, the way a Soviet-trained boxer walks when he has decided that footwork is a luxury he can no longer afford. Bruce recognized the stance immediately. It was not wrestling. It was not the sloppy brawling most heavyweights fell into. This was old Moscow amateur boxing. Ivan had trained in it before he had ever put on a wrestling singlet, and Ivan had been hiding that training for 6 years the way he had been hiding his left knee. Ivan threw a jab. It came faster than a man of his size had any right to throw. Bruce moved his head 2 inches. The jab passed. Ivan threw a second jab. Bruce moved his head 2 inches the other way. The jab passed. Ivan threw a right cross behind the second jab, and this cross did not miss. It was not aimed at Bruce's head. It was aimed at the space where Bruce's head had been half a second earlier. Ivan had anticipated the second slip. His right hand caught Bruce on the side of the neck just below the ear, at the point where the jaw meets the skull. The impact turned Bruce's head 90 degrees. His body did not fall, but it staggered 3 steps sideways, and his left shoulder brushed the top rope. The crowd made a sound that had no shape. Part gasp, part groan, part something older than both. Ivan followed. He was inside now. He hooked his left arm under Bruce's right and drove Bruce backward into the corner. Bruce's spine met the turnbuckle. Ivan's shoulder pinned Bruce's chest. Ivan's right knee came up and drove into Bruce's left thigh, once, hard, on the outside where the muscle sits over the bone. Bruce made no sound, but his left leg went numb from hip to knee. He felt it happen. He noted it. He filed it away with the bootlaces and the pale gray eyes. Ivan spoke into the top of Bruce's head. His voice was low. "You are alone in this corner, little man. Your student is in a hospital bed. Your wife is in Hong Kong. Your teacher is dead. There is no one in this building who is here for you. Do you understand what that means?" Bruce's answer was one word, whispered in perfect Russian. "Da." And in the front row, Hiroshi Tanaka's leather notebook was now fully in his hand, and the red string was unwound, and his silver head was slowly lowering to read the first page for the first time in 26 years. The first page of Tanaka's notebook was dated August 14th, 1945. The ink was faded, but readable. Tanaka's hand trembled as he held the page open. He was not reading it for information. He already knew every word. He was reading it to remind himself of a promise he had made to a dying man in a field hospital outside Manila, one day before the war ended. The dying man had been Tanaka's captain. Before the war, before the uniforms, the captain had been a martial arts instructor in Osaka. He had taught a system that mixed Japanese jiu-jitsu with something older, something he had learned from a Chinese monk who had wandered south during the collapse of the Qing dynasty. The captain had one student who had truly understood the system. That student had escaped Japan in 1938. That student had moved to San Francisco. That student had raised a son. The son's name was Bruce Lee. Tanaka had spent 26 years watching the son from a distance. He had watched him become a film actor. He had watched him teach in Seattle. He had watched him move to Los Angeles. He had never approached. He had promised the dying captain that he would only approach if the son ever faced the one kind of enemy the system had been built to defeat, a larger enemy, a stronger enemy, an enemy who intended not to defeat but to destroy. Tonight was that night. Back in the ring, Ivan was still pressing Bruce against the ropes. His forearm was across Bruce's collarbone. His breath was hot against Bruce's ear. And Bruce, with his left leg numb and his neck still ringing, did something Ivan had not accounted for. He stopped resisting. His body went soft. His weight dropped 1 inch. His shoulders released the tension Ivan had been leaning against. Ivan's own forward pressure carried him half a step further than he had intended. His center of gravity moved from over his own feet to over Bruce's shoulder, and in that half-second, Bruce did 3 things at once. His right hand grabbed the wrist of Ivan's pinning arm. His head slipped sideways out from under Ivan's shoulder, and his numb left leg, the leg that should have been useless, hooked behind Ivan's left ankle. Ivan understood in that instant what was about to happen. He tried to plant his weight backward, but his forward momentum had already committed. His left ankle was trapped. His upper body was tilting past the point of return. 460 pounds of unbalanced mass has only one direction it can go. Ivan Volkov went down. He did not go down cleanly. He went down like a felled tree. His right hand grabbed for the ropes. He caught one. It stopped his fall for half a second, long enough for his hip to hit the canvas, but not his shoulders. The referee was already counting. 1! Ivan's grip on the rope held. His shoulders were 3 inches off the mat. 2! Ivan's other hand was scrambling. His boots were kicking. His face was purple. 2.5! Ivan roared. He pulled himself up on the rope with a strength no man that large should have possessed after a fall like that. The count stopped. Ivan was on one knee. His left leg was under him. His right hand was still on the rope. He was breathing through his teeth in short, hard bursts. He looked up at Bruce, and for the first time in 6 years, Ivan Volkov's face carried an expression that his own mother would not have recognized. Fear. Not fear of losing. Fear of what he had already lost. Fear that the story he had told himself, the story he had lived inside for 11 years, the story about being the mountain that walks, had just been contradicted by a man half his size on a canvas floor in Tokyo. And in the front row, Hiroshi Tanaka stood up. Tanaka's voice cut across the arena. It was not loud. It did not need to be. It carried the particular authority of a man who had spent his youth giving orders in a war that his country had lost. He spoke in Japanese first, then in English, then, most surprising of all, in Cantonese. Boy, look at me. Bruce turned his head. His eyes found the silver-haired man in the gray suit. He did not know the face, but he knew the voice. He had heard that voice once before, in a recording his father had played for him when he was 9 years old. The recording had been of a battlefield prayer. The voice had been young then. It was old now. But it was the same voice. Bruce's mouth opened. He said one word, not in English, not in Cantonese, in old Japanese. "Sensei!" Tanaka nodded once, then he lifted the notebook. He held it up so Bruce could see the cover, and on that cover, written in his father's own hand almost 40 years earlier, was a single Chinese character that Bruce had seen once as a child and never forgotten. The character for water. Bruce closed his eyes for 1 second. When he opened them, something in his face had settled. Not calm, deeper than calm. He turned back to Ivan. Ivan was standing now. He was leaning on the ropes with his right hand. His left leg was carrying most of his weight, which was a mistake he could not help making, because his right leg was the one that had absorbed the fall. The referee had asked him twice if he wished to continue. Ivan had answered by pushing the referee aside with his free hand. The referee had stepped back. The fight was still legal. Ivan was still the challenger of record, and Ivan had 1 round left. Ivan came off the ropes. He did not walk. He advanced. It was the advance of a man who had abandoned every technique he had ever learned and was now operating on a single instinct, the instinct to erase the small man in front of him from existence. His hands were no longer boxers' hands. They were no longer wrestlers' hands. They were the hands of a butcher reaching for the last chicken in the yard. Bruce did not move. Ivan crossed the ring in 4 strides. On the 4th stride, his hands closed on empty air because Bruce had finally moved, and Bruce had moved in a direction Ivan had never seen a fighter move. Bruce had dropped straight down, not sideways, not diagonally, straight down onto his heels, into a crouch so low that his hips were 4 inches above the canvas. Ivan's hands passed over Bruce's head. Ivan's chest passed over Bruce's shoulders, and Bruce's right palm came up, open, flat, and struck upward into the soft point at the base of Ivan's sternum, the exact spot where the rib cage ends and the diaphragm begins. It was not a strike of power. It was a strike of placement. The full weight of Ivan's forward momentum met Bruce's rising palm at the one anatomical location where the human body cannot brace itself. Ivan's diaphragm compressed. His lungs emptied in a single involuntary rush. The air came out of him with a sound like a wet paper bag collapsing. Ivan stopped moving forward. He stood there, above the crouched Bruce, and his mouth opened, and no air came in. His lungs had been shocked. They needed 3 seconds to remember how to work. Ivan did not have 3 seconds, because Bruce was already rising, and Bruce's other hand was already traveling, and Bruce's foot was already sliding behind Ivan's right heel. Ivan Volkov went down for the 2nd time, and this time he did not reach for the ropes. This time his hands did not move at all. This time all 460 pounds of him hit the canvas flat, on his back, arms out, eyes open. The referee's hand slapped the mat. 1! The referee's palm hit the mat a 2nd time. Ivan's eyes were open. His chest was still. His arms had not moved. Somewhere in the northeast corner of the arena, a man in a black leather coat rose to his feet and began walking toward the exit. He was Ivan's manager. He knew, before anyone else in the building knew, that his 6-year business was ending on a canvas floor in Tokyo. 3. Ivan's lungs finally remembered. A single hard breath entered him. His chest lifted 2 inches, but his back stayed flat. His shoulders stayed pinned to the canvas by the weight of his own defeat. The referee did not slap the mat a 4th time. He raised both his hands. He turned toward Bruce. He pointed. The arena did not erupt. It broke. 11,000 people made a single collective sound that no recording device that night was able to fully capture. It was the sound of a story ending that no one had believed could end this way. Men were on their feet. Some were weeping. Some were laughing. Some were simply standing with their mouths open, unable to close them. Bruce did not celebrate. He walked to the center of the ring. He knelt down beside Ivan Volkov. He placed one hand, palm open, on the center of Ivan's chest. Ivan's eyes moved. They found Bruce's face. For a long moment, the 2 men looked at each other. Then Bruce spoke, quietly, in Russian. "The mountain still walks. It just learned to bend." Ivan's eyes filled. He did not blink. The tears rolled sideways into his ears, because he was still on his back, and a man on his back cannot cry the way other men cry. Bruce squeezed his shoulder once and stood up. The briefcase was brought to the center of the ring by 2 officials. It was placed on the canvas at Bruce's feet. The straps were cut. The lid was opened. 50,000 American dollars in paper-banded bundles caught the arena lights. Bruce looked at the money. He did not touch it. He turned to the referee. He spoke in English, loud enough for the ringside microphone to carry his voice to every corner of the building. "The money is not mine. Send it to the hospital in Manila. There is a young man there named Danny Reyes. Pay every bill he has. Whatever is left, give it to the other men whose names are in Ivan Volkov's record, the ones who tried before me. They earned it more than I did." Oh. The translator repeated the words in Japanese, then in Russian. The arena, which had begun to quiet, made its final sound of the night. It was not a cheer. It was a bow. 11,000 people all at once lowered their heads for 2 full seconds. Then they raised them. Bruce climbed out of the ring. At the front row, Hiroshi Tanaka was waiting. The notebook was in his outstretched hands. He offered it to Bruce with both palms up, the way a man offers a sword he has been keeping safe for someone else. Bruce took it. He did not open it. He knew he would open it later, alone, in a hotel room, at the small desk near the window that overlooked the Tokyo skyline. He knew he would find, on every page, notes from his father, written in a hand he had not seen since he was a boy. Bruce bowed to Tanaka. Tanaka bowed lower. It was the bow of a promise finally kept. Ivan Volkov left the arena on his own 2 feet that night. He never fought again. 6 months later, he opened a small boxing gym for orphans in a suburb of Moscow. Above the door of that gym, in 3 languages, he hung a single sentence: "Size is a story a man tells himself." And on the day the gym opened, a small package arrived from Hong Kong. Inside was a red string and a note, and the note had 2 words on it: "Thank you."